Hello, my bookish friends. Welcome or welcome back. I am Elizabeth. This is Reading Riley, and today we're going to talk about the 5 books that I read in September. It's a wrap-up. If you're new to my channel, I read mostly thriller, horror, and feminist fiction. I have 5 books to talk to you about this month, and as usual, I will start with my lowest rated book, and then I'll work my way up to my highest rated book, and there's quite a lot of variability in my ratings this month. I have the lowest rating is a 1.5 star, and I also have a 5 star, which happens to be a reread as well. We'll get into that more in just a little bit. If you do enjoy this kind of content, if you read the same kind of books as I do, hit that like button down below, hit that,
oh, my Michigan came out.
hit the subscribe button, click the notifications button so that you can see my videos when I post them in the future. And it also really helps me with the algorithm. I'm trying to make it to 10,000 subscribers, so we are so close. You can also find me on Instagram, on TikTok, at Reading Riley as well. Pitch over, let's talk about the books. The first book I want to talk to you about today is my 1.5 star rating, which I hate to say it, I haven't given out a 1.5 star in a really long time, but I think it's safe to say this book was 100% not for me, and I think maybe this author isn't for me. I'm not sure. It's adjacent to my taste, but not quite on. I recently went to Boston, and I picked this one out because it was set in New England, and this is McGlue by Ottessa Moshfegh. I have read at least 2 other books by this author, and both of them I've recommended, but given middle-of-the-road ratings. I don't know that her weirdness is my type of weirdness. I think this is on kind of the next literary level as far as like taking it very seriously. And I take myself really seriously, so I can't afford to take my reading this seriously. And this I would categorize as historical fiction or just general fiction, which I didn't realize going into. I do have a vlog, and I don't know which one's coming out first, if this is coming out first or that vlog, but if it's not already out, it will be out soon, of me reading this in New England. I recently took a trip to New England and I vlogged it, and so if you're interested in that kind of a travel vlog plus reading vlog, then check that one out. But it was a shame that I didn't love this one because I picked it because it's set in Salem, Massachusetts, but it's set in 1851, and we're following this character McGlue. This is also a novella. It's very short, 150 pages, I think. We're following this guy. He works on this ship, and they're sailing from port to port. He's sailing with his longtime bestie, and he wakes up one morning after having drank way too much. Also, he's an alcoholic. He's really a just deplorable character in general, and I usually don't mind a morally gray character and a likable character. I think this one swayed a little too far in the unlikable direction for me. It's just not my cup of tea. Anyway, this guy wakes up, he's got a gash down his head. His head is like split open. He is
not doing well.
And his friend is dead. And everyone's saying, you killed your friend, you killed your friend. And so we're following him in this kind of fever dream type of story. It's from his perspective. He is now an unreliable character because of this gash in his head, so he's coming in and out of consciousness. He's such a terrible, shitty human. He hates gay people, and I suspect that is because he is feeling something within himself that he is uncomfortable with, and that he is maybe projecting that anger onto gay people, and so there's just this one character that he just calls the whole time until it eventually turns into just his name being So if that bothers you, don't read this. If you have the same taste as me, I don't know that you would enjoy this. It was really dry. It was old-timey. Obviously, it's set in 1851. I thought it would be cool because the atmosphere, because I was in Salem, in Boston, to be reading this at the time, but now I'm understanding why this is a less-known novel or novella of Ottessa Moshfegh's, because I just don't think it's her best. If Ottessa Moshfegh was an actor, she would be a method actor. This is like method writing. She is in this guy's head, and she fully commits to portraying this character as she sees him as he truly is. And I think in that regard, she does a good job, because even though he is deplorable, she gives you enough information about him to help you understand why he is the way he is. And so I think she's really exploring that and kind of showing you every raw edge and bits and piece of him. But I just had no fun reading it. Honestly, I fell asleep reading it twice. It's so short. It took me on the plane ride home to get it finished. And even then I was just like, oh God, I still hate this guy. I'm not happy that I read this. So I would not recommend this one, to be frank. And I don't know that Ottessa Moshfegh and I are the same kind of weird. She's the next tax bracket of literary that I'm interested in residing in. I don't want this. I want it to scream something, not rely on me to investigate this character and find the good in it. I'll put the work into understanding what's happening and what's being read and looking at the words or listening to the words, but I don't want to have to pick it apart in order to rationalize a slight enjoyment, you know, in order to make myself feel like it was worth reading. And I just don't, so that's all I'm gonna say about it, 1.5 star. Now we have nicer things to say, and the next book I wanna talk to you about is The Unmothers. This was the Midnight Society Book Club pick for September. I read this with Jan Agaton as well as Sydney from Sid Bookworm. It was a dramatic read. This is like a folk mystery, I would say. And if you're interested in more in-depth discussion of that conversation, I will tag our live show discussion of that above and below. If you're unaware, I have a book club. It's called the Midnight Society Book Club. We read thriller, horror, and feminist fiction. We talk about it once a month. In the month of October, in case you're curious, we are reading Big Swiss by Jen BEAGIN. I've heard several different things about this. I've heard that this may be up my alley. I've also heard this may be problematic, so I don't know. We're gonna go into it with an open mind, and we're gonna discuss it at the end of the month. The live show book discussion for this will be on my channel here on YouTube, Sunday, November 3rd at noon Central Time. So put that in your calendar, pick up this book. It's pretty available. It's, oh, the audiobook is on Spotify, and I think I also got the audiobook from Everand, so it's pretty available. Also, I'm gonna be reading this with my IRL friend Chayce, as well as Deja from Deja's Book World. So really looking forward to discussing this with them. Back to this one. I think folk horror might be my thing. I like this intersection between supernatural and spirituality. I think that's where I can kind of get in with the supernatural thing, where it's something cultural, something that has to do with energy or a people, you know, doing something together that creates something like that. I can get on board with, because I do believe in energy. And so this kind of really hit me in a good spot with that. This one I will say is more on the side of mystery than horror. It is weird and it's wild, but it is not super horrific like you might imagine based on the context, which I will tell you about. And we're following this woman. She's a journalist. Her husband has just died, so she's grieving. There is some elements of grief horror in here as well, though not as heavy on that as I wanted or I imagined going into it. So her husband's just died, and her boss is like, you need to get out of the house. I'm gonna send you on this wild goose chase, essentially, in this small town. The town is called Rayford. They've raised horses for generations and generations. They're really obsessed with their horses. What she's heard is that there has been a healthy baby boy that has been birthed by a horse. And so this all goes back to this like folk tradition, folklore of this town. And it has something, it's a little bit spoilery, so I don't want to give too much away, but there's a lot of commentary in there, a feminist commentary about women who don't necessarily choose to be pregnant. You know, maybe they were touched in a way that was inappropriate. Even our main character, she doesn't want any harm to come to him, but even still, he pushed himself on her. Like it wasn't violent, but he took advantage of her for sure. Anyway, I don't want to get too deep into it. It's really interesting. I liked the writing. The prose is very purposeful, the way that she chooses her wording. I wouldn't say it's overly flowery, but it's definitely intentional, the way that she words things. And I like this author. I am giving this 3.5 stars. I don't think it did exactly what it set out to do, but I do think it was an interesting story, and it helped me come to the realization that I'm into this like folk horror, folk mystery thing. I'm thankful for that, and I would recommend this. And this was approved and indoctrinated into the Midnight Society. So there's that. Anyway, let's move on. We have 3 more. My next 3.5 star book I don't have a copy of, but that is called Haunt Sweet Home. This is by Sarah Pinsker. This, again, is a novella, 176 pages, very short. This was fun. I gave it 3.5 stars. It wasn't amazing, but it definitely like scratched an itch for me when it comes to certain tropes that I like. Like if you try to pick this one apart, you're probably gonna find a lot of stuff, but if you just kind of go along for the ride, I think it's a good time. It ends up a little bit on the weird side. So if you're not prepared for that, and if that is kind of something that you don't tend to like, then maybe stay away from this one. Because it is a little weird, but I think she does a really good job of making this almost feel like a coming of age story. Like our main character is finding themselves while going through all of this craziness, and it's horror. It's horror, but it's more than that too. Actually, I compared this to Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison because of the main character, how she's kind of the outcast in her family, and how she's kind of coming into this situation feeling like the black sheep. But now that I'm comparing it to like a coming of age meets horror, it's actually giving Joyland by Stephen King. I really loved that about this one too. Kind of fun, kind of kitschy, but very much like someone finding themselves, but then surrounded by this like carnival with ghosty stuff. So yeah, Joyland or Black Sheep I think are both good comp titles for this. Although the main thing that drew me in is that there is a reality TV show element in here that I love. I love that. So I was on board already from that. Yes, so on the set of a kitschy reality TV show. Okay, let's talk about this reality TV show. It's pretty ridiculous. It's a home makeover ghost show. They're going in to these people who bought houses that they think are haunted, and they're helping them reno, but also trying to like scare them with the haunting stuff. And so they're really ethically, like they're making everything up. They are contriving situations to scare these homeowners, and then of course that's good for ratings, yada yada yada. Not the most ethical thing, but you know, they do what they have to do to get views. And the host of this show, his name's Jeremy. He has a cousin named Mara. Mara is our main character, and we're following from her perspective, and she, like I said, feels like the family outcast. There's this whole thing with these stumps in her family. Like her family are all musicians, and she grew up sitting around the campfire, listening to music, and never really feeling like she fit in. She tried a bunch of instruments. She was never really good at it. Also, her grandmother would carve a stump for each of her grandkids, everyone in the family, by the time they were 21. She said she couldn't carve it before then because she didn't know the kind of person they were, and she would figure out, like, basically put their essence and their soul into carving this stump. And because Mara was the youngest, she was not 21 before her grandmother ended up developing crippling arthritis, and she never got her stump. So she's never fully felt like she belonged in this family. And she also doesn't know her purpose. She's a community college dropout like 3 times over, and she's 25. She's just having a hard time. And so Jeremy, her cousin, offers her this job on the show as a PA. She takes him up on it. And so that's generally what's going on here. But when she gets there, some weird things start happening. Some of her coworkers kind of turn on her. She develops this friendship, but it's not everything it looks like it is. And it's a little bit deeper than that. I don't want to give too much away, but because it's so short too. So if you're interested in that, if it sounds intriguing, pick it up, then read it. The audio is great. I did get this one from Macmillan Audio, so I had an advanced listener's copy of that. Super quick read, really light, kind of kitschy tone, but interesting and slightly weird. So there's that one. Aha! Now we get into my 4.5 star book as well as my 5 star, which I can't wait to tell you about both of these. I'm so excited about these. Okay, my 4.5 star book is no surprise. I read the new Matt Haig, The Life Impossible. I would probably also categorize this one as fiction, but this is the kind of general fiction that I'm on board with. Matt Haig, I love the way he thinks. I love the way he writes. He is the king of empathy. He is just iconic. The way he views the world makes me feel seen, and I love all of his books. I still think my favorite from him is The Humans, and I did have some problems with pacing about 3/4 of the way through, which tends to be a common thing in his book that I've noticed, but I've found that I love the message and the way it makes me feel so much that that really doesn't matter. But that's really the only reason it didn't get 5 stars. Because of the way he tells stories, because of the things that he likes to emphasize, it's not your typical formatting as far as like how a story goes, where you like reach the climax and then it comes. No, it's more kind of like this along the way. It's more about the journey. Matt Haig, maybe like a year ago, came out as autistic, and wow, I like that really, as far as my autism journey, which if you're unaware, I do believe I am also on the spectrum. I have not been diagnosed though. But Matt Haig was diagnosed, and I feel like we're so similar in so many ways. And so this makes me feel even more connected to him. And I can see like his self-acceptance of that in his writing, the way, the quirks that he's giving his characters. It's almost like he is expressing himself without doing it, without saying it. Like I see every piece of him in this, and I just think it's so beautiful. Anyway, let me tell you what it's about. And again, this also kind of like, you could wrap this into that category of maybe like supernatural versus religion, and maybe there's just something in this world that we don't quite understand yet. Like, I like that idea. What looks like magic is simply a part of life we don't understand yet. That's exactly what I love about this. So we're following Grace Winters. She's 72 years old. We also have like, you know, an older female protagonist, which I love. I don't recall Matt Haig having written from a female protagonist point of view before, but I could be wrong about that. But it was perfection. It was perfection. Anyway, Grace Winters is a retired math teacher. Love that because she's so rigid in her thinking when we enter into the story, and she needs everything to have a finite answer, everything to make sense and line up and add up. She gets a letter saying that she's inherited this house in Ibiza. I am realizing from the audiobook that it's pronounced Ibiza, but it's spelled Ibiza. So I'm not cultured enough to understand, but I want to say it's Ibiza. She inherited a house from her old friend, this woman who she barely knew. She met years and years ago and was kind to her when she was having a hard time. She like forgot this person existed, and come to find out she left her a house on this island. And apparently Ibiza is like a party island, and it's known for just like ragers and young kids and kind of like a, I don't know, spring break meets Dubai situation. I don't even know. So she's like, I don't know, I'm too old for this like scene or whatever, but she comes down and to check it out, and she ends up having this entire like journey. So her husband died. Her son also died tragically when he was pretty young as well. And so she's just like gone through it. She's been through the ringer, you know what I mean? And she's at the point in her life where it's like, she's so stuck in her ways that she's like, I'm ready to just take a leap of faith and just move there. She gets a one-way ticket to Ibiza, and she's just ready to go. When she gets there, her main goal is to figure out what happened to her friend, because they never found her body. She's like, well, where did she go? And they said she got lost at sea. So she goes and starts investigating this essentially, and comes across the path of this man. Tells her like, I can't tell you what happened to your friend, but if you meet me basically in the ocean at midnight, you will understand everything. And she's like, what do you, I can't do that. I don't stay up that late, first of all, and I'm not gonna go scuba diving. That's what it was. He's a scuba instructor. He's like, I'll take you out and I'll show you. She goes down, she does it. She's confronted with this bright light, and something happens to her. And after that, it's like I don't know how much to give away, but I want you to be interested because it's so good. She ends up gaining insight into the world and how it works that we wouldn't think is possible to access. Maybe I can say that. It's really about how everything in the world is connected. From like the blades of grass to the squirrel outside to the tuna in the ocean, you know, to us. We are all connected. It's all about energy and love and light. Doing what is right for the sake of doing what is right and saving our earth. It's got a lot of like, just like hope for the future. Matt Haig gives me so much hope. And I hope he knows that. I hope he knows that he gives people hope because he also struggles with mental health a lot. I need him to know that his journey helps me. It helps other people. And I'm like so in awe of him and what he does and the force and the energy that he brings to this world. Like it would not be the same without him. I respect him so much and he inspires me. So anyway, read it if you're interested. The Life Impossible by Matt Haig. And then lastly, we're going to talk about my 5-star book, which is a reread. And I originally also rated this 5 stars. And that is Bunny by Mona Awad, my still favorite Mona Awad book. I loved it. I reread this for a purpose. I don't usually reread books. And now I'm like, maybe I should. When you crack a new book, you're like, I don't know if I'm gonna love this or hate it. But when I cracked this open, I was like, I'm gonna love this. And so I just had the most fun with it. And because of the weird twists in here, I was able to go into it looking at it from a completely different perspective and able to kind of break down more little hints and clues that I didn't see coming the first time. The reason I reread this was because I was asked to join my friend Gwen Kensinger as well as Summer from Seasons Readings to do an analysis of this book and discuss it on her podcast, the Talk Bookish to Me podcast. And by the time this is out, that episode will have already aired. So if you want to check that out and hear us break this down to like a very specific degree, then give that a listen. You can find her on Spotify or anywhere you listen to podcasts at Talk Bookish to Me podcast. And it's called Welcome to the Smut Salon. If you're familiar with Mona Awad with Bunny, the Smut Salon is a reference from the book. A lot of people compare this to Heathers. A lot of people compare this to Mean Girls. There's definitely a clique situation in this. There's a lot of carryover from those comparisons, but the thing that makes this one different, that distinguishes this, is that it's about art. It's about writing. And we're following Samantha Heather Mackey, and she is in this MFA program, this master's program in this very esteemed Warren University in New England. I didn't realize this is also set in New England. That was like the theme of my month this month, which is a fictional college, but it's supposed to be this very artsy-fartsy writing college. Samantha is a scholarship student at this college, so she's already set apart from everyone else in her program, and the only other people in her specific program are 4 other girls who all call each other Bunny. They are bunnies. Their names are bunnies. Well, they start out individual, but it changes. These girls that are in her writing cohort, they seem to move together, like act as one. They are like one being, and she feels very outside of this, and like she's been cut off from that, but she also, her and her best friend Ava love to make fun of these girls because her and Ava are like the outsiders. So like if you're like an outsider, if you felt like never really fit into like the in crowd, I feel like you would relate to this. But if you're also want some commentary on kind of academia and how they gatekeep what is art and what is not, that's in here. It's also just really weird. There's a lot of stuff with bunnies that goes wild. It's kind of like a fever dream. You don't know what's real and what's not real. And even in the end, you don't necessarily know. This is a very divisive book. Some people love this. Some people hate it. It is a little bit pretentious and it's weird. And I love it for that. It's everything that I love in a book. Mona Awad is such a gem once again. Like she is so smart. She's just such an impressive human being when it comes to this. Like she makes it look so easy. The way she formats everything, it's classic, but the story is anything but. It is so original. This is satirical, but also malicious at the same time. It's just got so much going on and so much to break down. So if you do want more info, the whole full breakdown, check out our discussion on the Talk Bookish to Me podcast. Again, that's called Welcome to the Smut Salon, and it's available on Monday, October 7th. And those are the 5 books that I read in September, y'all. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you've stuck around to the end, give me a bunny to let me know that you watched this whole thing. I really appreciate y'all so much. Let me know in the comments below what was your favorite book that you read this month. If you have anything to recommend to me based on these books that I have read, I'd love to hear it. Always love hearing it from y'all. Also, let me know if you're going to be participating in the book club this month. Check the Instagram at the Midnight Society Book Club for the most up-to-date information on that. And don't forget that life is short, my friends. So read Riley. Cheers and goodbye.